How's it going, everybody? And welcome to the Music Production Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Funk. I make music as AfroDJMac. Today, I'm sitting down with Nate Beaudry, who makes music as Chef Elf. What's up, Nate? How you doing?
Hey, what's going on?
I'm doing well, man. It's good to talk to you.
Yeah, great to talk to you finally. This is awesome. We've been going back and forth on email and such for a while, so it's good to talk to you in person, as it were.
Yeah, and I think we really started connecting a lot over January of 2018.
Yeah,
which was kind of the first time I really participated for real. I guess really the only time I participated for real. I did it a little bit the year before, and this year I did one thing. I didn't want to add another thing to my plate, so I stayed out of it kind of on purpose, but I did try to get one in. But you, on the other hand, you nailed all the days of January last year, which, by the way, maybe I should mention to people. January is this kind of challenge, I guess, this internet challenge to make a little jam every single day in January. And usually people make it about a minute, kind of like Instagram friendly, right? I think that's what you were doing too.
Yeah, and it kind of worked out that way unintentionally. I think from the previous year, I was doing just kind of a little longer form stuff, and I'd cut it off in a minute. And this year it was almost kind of like writing jingles, just trying to keep the actual structure of it to under a minute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a nice, I guess, unintimidating, kind of rule. Just you got to make something, and it's about a minute, and it doesn't really matter if it's good. But the fact is that you're getting to work every day.
Yeah, exactly.
But you did all 31 days of January, and then you continued, and you haven't even stopped yet. Over a year later.
Yeah, I think it's day 421 now.
Wow.
I think where I've kept going, and it was one of those weird things. I saw one of the guys I was following for January, and so many people that I had never heard of, just adding that hashtag to your Instagram and seeing all these things pop up. You see stuff you really like, so you start following that person. And one of the guys I was following did day 32, and I was like, well, that's funny. I think, well, why don't I do something for day 32? And then I, was kind of, let's see if we can get to 40, and let's see if we get to 50, and then now I'm seeing if we can get to 500. And then maybe I'll stop. I don't know.
Well, it's gonna be hard, I bet. There's a kind of like a story. I don't know how true it is, but I think it's attributed to Jerry Seinfeld when he talks about writing comedy.
Right.
And it's he calls it breaking the chain, or don't break the chain.
Don't break the chain. Yeah.
Yep. You know what I'm talking about. So.
Yeah. That's been in the back of my mind too. And I used to do a lot of writing, writing books and things like that, and stories. And I can't remember when I heard that quote from Seinfeld or read the story or whatever it was, but that really stuck with me. It's just kind of just don't break. Just every day, even if you do something for 5 minutes, even if you write one sentence, you're one sentence closer to being done. And
yeah.
It's a good philosophy.
The idea is if you're a comedy writer, you have to write. So he recommends getting a calendar, and every day you write, make an X. And you may write 2 days, miss a day, but eventually you'll get a little streak going. And once you get a bit of a streak going, you don't want to stop, and you want to keep going. And I think you are now really in that position where how are you ever going to put the brakes on?
I know it's kind of like a point of pride now. Well, I think that the thing is it's been a lot of fun, and I definitely just going through that process now over 400 times of starting a project and ending a project and exporting a project, and all the little things you learn along the way of the little details that you need to do that at first I would mess up all the time. I wouldn't leave a little snippet of time at the end, and it would end too abruptly, or you wouldn't hear the decay of the reverb or whatever it was. So now all that stuff is just really second nature to me is in doing the process. Now, the end result is still done very quickly, so there's a lot of room for adjustments and making things better, but it's going through that process so many times. you can't help but learn things and build. I've built templates now to start that save me a little bit of time and make things a little bit easier.
Yeah, I guess you kind of need to, I guess, if you're doing it that much, to have some sort of formula or method going.
Right, and it does become very formulaic, and so much of the stuff that I did was doing those 8-bit albums with your Super 8-bit pack, which is actually how I found you in the first place. I set up the studio and in my basement, and I got out some old stuff and I got some new stuff and I patched it all together, and I said, and I've always had this same kind of fondness that you do for the original Nintendo, and I just Googled like, how do you make those Nintendo sounds or something like that, and your pack came up and I bought it right away. I was like, just looking at the graphic of it too, I don't even think I watched a video. I just said, you know what, I'm gonna just, whatever it was, $14-15, paid it, and I opened it up in Ableton, and I was just like, oh my god, this is exactly what I was looking for. Nice. Like I was kind of expecting to be disappointed, or like, this isn't quite what. I just plugged it in, put my MIDI controller on, and just played around with it, and then didn't really do anything with that for years until January, really.
No. When I first realized that I could make Nintendo style sounds with it was with the computer, it wasn't anything else. I'm a guitar player, always been in rock bands, but had that kind of, like you said, that fondness for the old 8-bit sounds. And when I realized that I could do that in the computer, I was just like, what? And that really sparked my entire interest in synthesis, I think, from just learning that I could do that sort of thing with synthesizers. And it just didn't occur to me that was possible until that point. And I wound up getting like a couple little plugins. They were like, there was one called like, I think it was called like Chip VST or something like that. Really, really simple, basic thing, and I loved it. But then I came across this thing called the MIDI NES, which is a Nintendo cartridge with a MIDI cable coming out of it. And I guess it's got a software that runs, so it gives you some sort of interface to interact with the Nintendo sound card. And that thing was just, I loved that. I mean, and it was just so authentic because it's really coming from the Nintendo. But apparently I was lucky to get that when I did, because I read a lot of comments online about people like paying money, never getting it. I think the person that was making it kind of fell off the face of the earth or something. I don't know. But yeah, I feel like grateful to have that thing.
Did you use that to make that pack?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's what I used. I just sampled pretty much every variation I could get of the different waves on the Nintendo. I mean, there's not that many. There's, I think, 4 different pulse waves, like square wave type sounds. And then there's the triangle. There's the noise, which there's a lot of different variations on the noise. And then there were some samples on it, which I think, from what I understand, can be changed depending on the game.
Oh, because I remember, in your pack, there's like a few wave files in there. One of them sounds like the gun from like Track and Field or something. Yeah. Maybe that's the game you used. I don't know, but
yeah, I don't really know. They were kind of just on there. I think I did do a few sounds off of the Genesis and the Super Nintendo in there. Like some of the drum sounds. I think like I made some drum kits out of like Street Fighter 2, like punches and kicks and stuff, which are fun. But yeah, mostly just that Nintendo, that MIDI NES was just, it's great. But it's so much easier to use it inside of Live, like,
Oh yeah.
I mean, just to get my Nintendo to actually load the cartridge right without like the blinking screen, we have to reset, blow in the cartridge. Yeah, the same issues you always had. It would take me like 10 minutes sometimes just to like position the cartridge right, the exact proper angle where the Nintendo would read it.
Right.
So that definitely inspired me to sample it. All that trouble.
Years ago, I got a new. So have you ever like opened up your Nintendo checked it out?
I haven't personally, but I have a friend that is big into that kind of stuff. So I've seen some. He turned his Nintendo into a PC. Like it's really just the shell.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so on the motherboard, so the motherboard is basically like, I don't know the right terminology, but you've got the little copper colored connectors on the motherboard, look just like the end of a cartridge. Mm-hmm. And there's a piece that plugs into one end of the motherboard, and then that little piece is what's in there, and you slide the cartridge into it and tamp it down to play the game. So what happens over time is that the motherboard one is staying connected and there's no problem, but from constantly inserting and taking out the cartridge, it wears away those connectors.
Yeah.
So you can actually buy the piece on like eBay. Mm-hmm. It's just a little C-shaped piece. Take the old one out, put the new one in, and your Nintendo will work like the day you got it.
Yeah, that's exactly.
I think it costs less than $10.
That's what my friend was telling me I should do one day, or give to him, so he'll do it. And maybe I will one day, just to get that experience back. Right now, I don't have it. I don't really have a burning need for it, I guess.
Right.
But it's something that's sort of in the back of my mind, because I think you're right. I think it is that particular connector, just not
right. We blow in it thinking, oh, there's dust in there, and you blow in it, and that doesn't obviously do anything.
I think that actually does harm, right?
Probably, yeah. I get it.
Moisture and
you're probably blowing more dust in there than you're taking off.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you sometimes you tap the top of the thing, and it'll just kick in, and it'll be okay. It just needs that right connection.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe. I remember this was probably the late 90s. It was one of the first things I ever bought, I think, on eBay. I found this, and then I found a guy on eBay selling them. I picked one up, and I think it was under $10. And it was like brand new, and never had a problem. I'm sure over time it would, but
yeah, I guess it's the same problem, right? And just wear out eventually.
Right. I'm just not playing as many games now as I did then. So
yeah. Yeah, I would imagine you're not playing as many games right now, based on your musical output. Just to give like people listening an idea, like, you did all of the January last year. You did Megadeth, Rust in Peace, Blood, Sugar, Sex, Magic by the Chili Peppers, a Pink Floyd record, an Ozzy Osbourne record, Ben Folds. I'm just scrolling fast. Elton John.
Yeah, you must be reading off a list, because I'm like, oh wow.
I'm on your music page on chefelp.com.
Okay. Sure.
You did Thriller. You did Injustice for All. Abbey Road, which was really awesome for me as like a Beatles fan.
Sure.
And then I guess this was December. You did all the Christmas songs, which my wife and I decorated our tree to. we put on the playlist, and we were just listening to like video game Christmas songs.
Yeah, I was very touched to hear that when you told me about that. That's cool. I think Christmas music gets a bad rap, and a lot of people just, oh no, I hate Christmas music, but I've always really enjoyed it. And I mean, there's a lot of really annoying Christmas music, but there's a lot of stuff that I really enjoyed listening to around that time of year. So I tried to take some of my favorites and put them together.
Yeah, I don't know. I love Christmas songs, like the whole season, and it's fun that like people kind of, it's like, there's not a lot of things I guess people like get together around as a whole, and even if you're regardless of like religious belief, like it's nice to see just that happen. I think personally, I like the spirit of it. So
right, yeah, I feel the same way, and I'm not really religious, but that is a important thing to me, and having kids just really reinvigorated my joy for the season. Just seeing how excited they get, makes it all worth it.
Right. Yeah. It's definitely a lot of fun when you're a kid.
Yes. It's a lot of fun and a lot less work. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's an insane output for sure. And if you're into, especially if you're into 8-bit music, there's some cool stuff there. You've kind of branched out from that though a little bit in recent days, right? You're going into like some right now you're doing like some Moog sounds and
yeah, so I there's this piece that I've been working on. I don't know if you even call it a piece. I don't know what to call it, but it's something by Terry Riley called In C. which is something that he wrote, or I don't even know if you can say wrote. It's just a very weird thing. My friend's father had told me about it probably 20 years ago. I've been thinking about it ever since, and it just occurred to me, like, why don't I try doing that, in Ableton and making a performance of it. And basically the idea of it is there's 53, I think it's 53 different little snippets of sheet music on one piece of paper. And, this one's, 1 bar, this one's 2 bars, or this one's, you play like maybe one whole note and that's the whole snippet. And the idea is you just give this to any number of musicians and they start playing whatever they want, whenever they want, for as long as they want. So, somebody might play part 17 for 2 minutes straight and then not play anything for a little while. And somebody may play them all from 1 to 53. And, everyone, just depending on how you want to do it, can interpret that and stitch it together in any way that they want. And at times it sounds like complete cacophony. And at times things start to sync up and work really well. And, it's very interesting. It kind of reminds me of going back to the Beatles, that the end of A Day in the Life with the orchestra, where they give the sheet music to everyone and say, everyone start from the lowest note on your instrument to the highest note, but you have to start here, and at this many whatever bars you end on your highest note, and everyone has their different way of getting there. Exactly. However you want to get there, you get there. And this is, a little bit more complex, but it's something that I always thought was cool. It's one of those things that's probably cooler to do and to perform than it is to listen to.
Yeah.
But it's a fun little music experiment and it was written. He put it together in 1964, which is interesting to think in that how old this idea is. And if you look on YouTube, you can probably find a million different performances of it. No two are the same.
Yeah, that's cool. And I guess there are some genres of music like that where it's more for the musicians than the listener.
Yeah, exactly. There's probably a lot of music like that, actually.
I have a couple of friends of mine that will get together once in a while. It's very occasionally, maybe once or twice a year. But the point really isn't for it to be something that you enjoy to listen to.
Yeah.
It's total experimentation. So you really, I never know who's bringing what. And one of the guys is fun. We did it at his house last, and he's just got so many things around. He'll like leave the room and come back with these weird bells, and he's just banging them into and every once in a while, though, like you said, there's like this moment of bliss where it's just, wow. And I don't know if maybe it's a little bit because everything was so chaotic and now you get something that kind of works and it feels nice.
Right. Well, and people start playing off of each other and responding to what the other people are doing. Yeah. And sometimes you just fall into a groove, and it's cool. I'd said earlier that we used to own this recording studio with a buddy of mine, and who's also, he's the one that got me into Ableton, actually. He's an Ableton certified trainer too. He just got his PhD in crazy electronic music, whatever.
Oh, nice.
I don't even understand what it is. His name's Chris Warren.
Chris Warren. Okay, cool.
He's doing all sorts of stuff that we talk all the time, but I have no idea what he's. I have no idea what he's telling me.
Yeah.
He does a lot of really cool stuff that I can't even understand if I want to. He was always my kind of go-to for questions about things like that, because he could break down the math of how music works, and I'm just like, I don't know. I just press record and press some buttons, but he got me into Ableton. When I reset everything back up, it had been years since I touched it, and he told me, you got to use Ableton, and I found a copy of Sony Vegas that I was using, because that's what we used. That's what was cool back in whatever 1999 or 2000, whenever we were doing it. And he said, no, you have to use Ableton. So I kind of forced myself to use it, and I hated it for like a few weeks, and then now I can't imagine using anything else.
It was definitely the first time I ever saw it. I'd bought Pro Tools in 2005. I sold a beautiful Tascam mixer to buy a laptop, which, man, I still regret that sale. But Anyway, yeah, I wanted to go to like computer-based stuff, and as far as I knew, there was Pro Tools. The end, right?
Right.
And Pro Tools came with some trial versions of Reason and a couple other softwares, but one of them was Ableton Live 4, I think.
Wow.
And I remember playing around with it a little bit, but just kind of like really being perplexed by the session view. Like, what is this?
I'm still perplexed by the session view. but yeah, I still just mostly do everything in arrangement mode because that's what I'm used to. But just the features of Ableton are incredible.
Yeah, I came back like I guess right around the end of 7, beginning of 8, when I was realized how the MIDI mapping was so nice, and I was like, oh, this is what I want, like to be able to control things with buttons and knobs and keys and faders.
Right.
But yeah, it is wild. I think what you're saying about this piece in C, it might be like cool to set up a whole bunch of these like musical ideas in a session view and let it kind of randomly launch clips and just
in fact, the way I was looking around for a good MIDI version of NC that I couldn't really find one, and I did find something. I don't even remember what it is. I wish I could, so I could credit the person. But it was part of some sort of bundle, which would do just what you were saying, is it would randomly generate a version of NC. But I was like, I don't want that. I want the MIDI files and to take them and kind of map them out myself and look at each. I've got like 16 different Moog presets that I'm, imagining the performance on each one.
Right.
But yeah, it's totally lends itself really well to doing that. I'm sure maybe with Max for Live you could program something to do just that.
Yeah, I think you could probably even use the follow actions with the clips, which follow actions is basically you tell the clip to do something after a certain number of bars. So you specify how long you want the clip to play. Say it's a bar.
Okay.
And then it can either play the next clip, the previous clip, a random clip. It could play again.
So yeah, that would work.
It basically like works with any adjacent clip.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see like throwing in like some clips of silence, some clips.
Right. Yeah, like a 1 bar of silence, 2 bars of silence, whatever. And
maybe one of them's like 22 bars of silence, and
exactly,
just to get that like really interesting randomness to it. And it could be a cool experiment. I do that sometimes with drum beats, where I'll take like variations of one beat, but have it randomly go through the different variations. So I'm trying to program in like the features of drummers that I always got annoyed about when I was playing with drummers more.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, can't you just play the same beat straight? It's like, no, you got to do that little thing here. You got to, like.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, MIDI drummers don't annoy you as much.
Yeah, but it's like now I miss that stuff. All the things that used to annoy me, like I'm trying to find ways to reintroduce when I use the computer. I don't want everything to be in tune anymore. I don't want it to be perfectly in time. I don't want it to, just like be so static and repetitive. Whereas
I would have killed to be able to get rid of all that hiss on my old. I have an old Tascam right to my side over here, like an 8-track Tascam that I used to record for years and years.
Nice. Is it cassette or is it reel to reel?
It's cassette.
Yeah, cool.
But it plays it like that super fast, I guess.
Yeah.
So a whole if you had like a 90-minute cassette, I think you can fit like 12 minutes on it or something.
Right.
But all that tape hiss I would have killed to get rid of. Now I'm inserting back into my projects artificially.
Yeah, I used to call that 4-track magic because I had like the most basic Tascam 4-track tape recorder, cassette tape.
Mm-hmm.
I think it only had I think I can only do 2 tracks at once. It might have even just be 1. I might be dreaming, but after you did like 3 tracks, you could bounce to the 4th track.
Yep.
And as soon as you did that, all of a sudden, like all these harmonics and weird, the quality went down significantly. But then it's it sounds like there's another like thing in the background singing, or there's some like weird notes. And every once in a while when you did that little bouncing, and then you would, of course, you got your 3 tracks on track 4, and then you record another track on 3 and 2, and then you bounce all of those to track 1.
Yep.
And then like all this like weird stuff would go on, and it would sound like there was so much more happening than there really was.
Yeah.
It's just noise and I don't know, distortions and harmonics going on. But yeah, that's stuff I miss.
Very muddy harmonics, and it would just always everything I bounced down I'd always regret the levels, and
yeah.
I don't know how, like I mean obviously they were using the state of the art equipment and geniuses, but I don't know how the Beatles did what they did with 4 tracks. I mean, and how it can sound. I mean, if you listen to any contemporary stuff, they're light years ahead of anyone else. It's just it boggles my mind now listening to any of their stuff, you know. And I'm there's other bands like I'm really into like Deep Purple, and I'll listen to a Deep Purple album from the late 1968, I think was their first album, and it doesn't sound as good as the first Beatles album, which was in '62. Like I don't know how they did it. George Martin was, I mean, I was going to say he doesn't get enough credit, but I think he gets a lot of credit.
Yeah.
He's incredible.
Well, they just released the White Album again.
Yeah.
With a new mix by, is it Giles Martin? I think is his name.
I believe that's his name. Anyway. Yeah. Yep.
And there's also, I think it was, maybe it was, he was on a podcast talking about it. It was really cool. It might have been like All Songs Considered or something like that. But man, like the White Album, like the new mix, I mean, there's a little part of me, I guess, that's like, don't touch that. It's perfect. You know, and they did it with Sgt. Pepper's too. But it's really interesting to hear it, at least from this other perspective, where you kind of, things are a little bit more clear and some things get a little more emphasis than others did in the past. I just love it. It's like, it's just fascinating to just hear it, like almost like you're in a different spot in the room or something.
Oh, it's incredible. And hearing these alternate takes of songs that you've grown up with your whole life, and some amazing stuff on there. It just, and you know, they've got the Escher demos, which I'd heard like versions of them that were nowhere near as cleaned up as these. Yeah,
they were in those anthology recordings from the 90s.
Yeah, that's probably where some of them were.
Yeah.
And there's a version of, I don't know if you've heard the whole thing, but there's a version of Everybody's Got Something to Hide Except Me and My Monkey, which is just instrumental, and it doesn't even sound like the same song. It's,
I think, isn't he kind of screaming in the background there or something?
I think you might hear him in the background, but just the groove of how they're playing together is just like, it doesn't even sound like the Beatles. It's, I mean, I hesitated to make that purchase, but then I was just like, as a Beatles fan, I felt like I had to, and you know, it's one of those things, you're not just going to listen to it every day, but just from a historical standpoint to listen to it, I would buy a version of that for every Beatles album. It's very interesting.
It is very interesting to really get to listen again. I mean, I would love them so much to begin with, but just from that perspective, the recording, and it's great. But like what they were able to do is incredible. And when we have a cell phone that has more technology in it than that entire studio had, but you know, it goes to show, I mean, obviously that it was state of the art, but knowing your stuff is just,
it's so much more important than having, you could have every plug-in on earth, and you could have the most high-end equipment, but if you don't know what you're doing, I mean, it'll sound good. There won't be a lot of hiss. But it's pretty incredible what they did. And I know I learned a lot of lessons I would record like the drums on my 8-track. I'd record the drums on 1 track, you know, and just like thinking about it now, I'm like, why didn't I just stereo up the drums and record something else with them, like the bass or the guitar on the same stereo track? And I mean, I ended up doing that towards the end of my time with that, as I learned that sounds a heck of a lot better. But I would bounce bounce the drums down to one track, and I just have this one little narrow, weak sounding drum track.
Yeah. Well, I still think my 4-track cassette days were some of my most productive, just because.
Absolutely.
I mean, the options were so limited. I had a guitar and a microphone at the end, and if I had a drum, like, yay, that was wonderful. But it wasn't like now where I'm searching through every part of the kit, every sound, everything is so meticulous that you can get down, and just having like the immediacy of that machine and limited options.
Yeah, and you would just record a guitar track, and whatever sound you had on your guitar, that was the sound that was on the recording. It wasn't, you're not flipping through Amplitude for 2 hours through 150 presets trying to find the right sound. You just like, no, I threw a mic in front of my amp, and this is the sound I got. And it did. Trying to get back to some of that is, what really intrigued me about January is just that immediacy of just like, no, you just got to get it done. You don't need to worry about anything, which is, I think, honestly what tripped me up for years. I found out about January through your podcast. I heard you mention it once, and I remember Googling, and I couldn't find anything about it or like how it worked or whatever, but you mentioned it very briefly in passing, and I just loved the concept of it. And then closer to January, you brought it up, and I really, really wanted to do that and just have that effect of just, you start something, finish it, it's done, it's not perfect, and move on, because that's a huge stumbling block for me and probably for a lot of people. And to just put stuff out there and get it out there, and just it feels so good to go through that,
Yeah, I totally agree. And I'm trying to do more of that, like committing my sounds, whether it's recording MIDI tracks to audio or running the effects before it actually gets inside the software. Just so it has
living on the edge.
Yeah, living on the edge, right? But it's nice because I think if it really informs like the next decision you make too, because if you've got this particular sound, you have to now find a sound that works with it. Right. Whereas otherwise you could say, well, this sound doesn't really work with my old sound, so let me go fix the old sound now. And then you're in this endless loop of changing everything to make something fit, and it's easy to get caught in that and not get anything done. Yeah, and I have that's my biggest stumbling block, is always just, I have a hard time committing and saying, this is it, this is perfect, when I think of like, I get really annoyed when I think of like what George Lucas did with Star Wars, and like, no, I'm going to go back and make a special edition, and no, I'm going to add some more stuff. Oh, we got to put this scene in, and it would annoy me so much, but I'm like, that's me. I would do the same thing. I would say, no, you don't see what it looked like in my head, or how I envisioned it. And I remember seeing an interview with John Lennon, or maybe reading it, I don't remember, but talking about Strawberry Fields and how he was so unhappy with it. It didn't sound anything like it sounded in his head. And it's just like, what are you talking about? Like, it's Strawberry Fields. It's awesome. It sounds great. I mean, I love that, the Mellotron, and just, I love that sound. And, like he pitch shifted his vocals down and all this crazy stuff and he just was completely unhappy with the finished product. It just goes to show you that, you're, when people are listening to your stuff for the first time, that's their first exposure to it. They're hearing it, how they hear it, and even if they love it, you're never going to be able to kind of put exactly how it sounds in your head down. It's just not possible. Yeah, and we never get to hear our own songs for the first time. Right. You don't get that feeling of like, all right, what is this going to be? Everything that's going to happen. And you've worked it to that point, and that you could keep working, you could change it, you could take something out, add something in, and you never get that like, just, all right, here it is, this is what it is.
Right. You're just gonna always feel kind of self-conscious about them, or say, don't worry about this. I'm gonna fix that bass part later, or I know the level's a little low here, but nobody else really cares.
It's like the curse of the producer, as
Yeah, exactly.
maybe the curse of like the player in the band is you don't get to dance. You know?
Yeah.
But this is like the producer curse. You don't ever get to be an experience of your song for the first time. But
I find I generally like things like that, like things that are unfinished in other people's work. Never feel like my own work is ever finished, but
yeah.
There's this this hip hop guy named Spose that I have been following for years, and he years ago had this nightmare scenario where he had an album he was working on a laptop. They broke into his van, stole his laptop. His album's gone. But he just released just a few days ago a copy of it that was just like all the rough takes that he had from wherever, stitched them together and called it the Stolen Album, and was like, just put it out for free. And I actually was listening to it today, this morning maybe, for the first time as I was driving around, and you can hear that it's obviously not as polished as his other stuff, but just the ideas there and the songs that he's doing are great, and I really, really enjoyed it. I'm sure he's still really annoyed that he lost all of his work, but it came out great. I thought it sounded awesome.
Yeah, what you brought up, the George Lucas thing with Star Wars, it is interesting. I don't even think you can really get the original versions of Star Wars anymore, can you? Like, are there... Because I was trying to find like some of the original scenes. I think it was maybe like Jabba the Hutt and Han Solo walking around, and that's like totally changed now on like the collection that we bought. We bought like one of those like box sets, and it's like all computer graphics. I'm like, how did they do this in 1970 whatever?
Are you talking about like the Jabba the Hutt scene in Return of the Jedi with like all the crazy singing and everything?
I don't know for sure which one I'm talking about. But there was a couple scenes anyway within the first trilogy. You know, 4, 5, 6, the original trilogy.
Yeah,
hard to talk about.
I know, it's hard to do the timeline.
But there was a lot of computer graphics in it, and it was. I just remember, like before I researched it and found out that they'd been redone. I was like, man, that just doesn't seem right for whatever year they came out, you know?
Right.
I don't even know. So that's, revealing my lack of Star Wars knowledge right now. But, that idea that he went back, I was trying to find some of the original scenes, and I was having a lot of trouble, like just even finding like what it actually looked like originally.
There's like huge communities of people that
I found out
every possible version. This is the real one. This is the 1990 laser disc version. The laser disc would have 3 discs, and you'd have to flip it over so there'd be like 6 sides like an album, and they would stitch it together and make this is the one, because for everyone it was the version they grew up watching, right,
the one you saw first.
But there was one of the best ones is the one that got released, and I can't remember, it might have been like 2004 or so. He released a version of the trilogy, and there was 2 discs, and the one disc was the special edition with the dinosaurs walking in front of the shots and all this stuff, and then in the flip side of it was a disc that was the actual original one, cleaned up theatrical release. And those were probably some of the best ones that you could buy. There's a million that you can download versions that are actually pretty good. But I'm a bit of a connoisseur of I have so many different versions of it.
I know you did a little writing on that too, so I wanted to get back to that.
Yes, I did.
Because it was one of those things where, I mean, obviously, everyone knows there's these huge communities around Star Wars. It's one of the biggest franchises of film and story ever. But it was still surprising. It's like you lift up that rock and you see there's a whole universe of things happening.
Right,
and
right, yeah.
I was like, I'm never gonna get to the bottom of this.
No, you'll never find. For me, it's easy with Star Wars 'cause I feel like I've come from that community and I kind of understand it. But there's other movies where I'm just like, I just want to know. I just want the one that I saw when I was a kid. I tried the same thing with Blade Runner. I'd seen that as a kid. I really liked it. The new movie was coming out. I was like, I really want to watch the original Blade Runner. Well, then there's the theatrical release, the director's cut, and then all these people fighting online. This is the one. You can't have the one where has the the monologues or any of this. And I'm just like, I just want to watch the one I saw as a kid. Yeah. I finally figured it out, but you had to do a lot of investigating. And then I tried to show my kids E.T. for the first time, and kind of same thing like you were saying with Star Wars. We're watching it, and then all of a sudden I'm like, wait a second, E.T. looks a little elaborate right now, like the things that he's doing. Yeah. All of a sudden he's not just this little puppet, he's like making all these motions, like this must be a special edition or something. And sure enough it was. And at the end, like when the FBI agents are there with they're holding a gun, but they've changed it to a walkie-talkie, so they're holding a walkie-talkie as if there's a trigger on it, because I guess they didn't want kids to see them holding guns. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Steven Spielberg did the same treatment to E.T. I guess.
I guess you can't blame him. It's tempting. It's
it is. I get it, but but the funny thing is George Lucas was one of the ones in the 80s who was really outspoken about you can't colorize films. You need to leave them in their original format. And then here he goes, and this is 10 times more than colorizing. He's changing the storylines. He's adding scenes, taking scenes out, putting things in scenes that weren't there. It's kind of funny.
It's a world he built, I guess. So
he can do whatever he wants. I mean, it's good. I mean, I think the big thing was just making sure that there was a version there for fans of the original, and there is plenty of options to see them now if you want to. It's just got to know where to look.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of got scared away.
Exactly. That's how I felt with other movies. I just couldn't I couldn't figure out what was the right one. And same thing with E.T. I watched that one with my kids. I was like, I want the regular original one. I can't find it. I'm just I'm sure if I ordered a VHS tape off of eBay, I could get it, but I'd like something a little more advanced than that.
Yeah. That's funny. So before we forget that we're on a music production
off on a bit of a tangent here.
I'm always game for the tangents though.
Yes,
so it's cool. It's totally cool. And I definitely, added the fuel to the fire there. But I wanted to ask you some of the takeaways you had over, you said 400 and change days now. So what are some things you're doing? Are you doing these every single day, or do you batch them up? Maybe on the weekend you do a few, and
sometimes I'll batch them up. When I'm on vacation or something, I'll batch them up so I can kind of load them out. And sometimes I'm pretty much in the studio every day doing something towards them, or sometimes just playing around with something that I don't end up putting out there. But yeah, it's. I'm making sure that the queue is filled, and I'm getting in the studio to do something towards the push to keep it going. And sometimes I feel like I've got lots of stuff lined up, and sometimes I kind of panic, and because I'm just trying to think of ideas is sometimes harder than anything.
Yeah.
I think the hardest part I had of January is I'd come in, I'd throw everything on, I'd find I hadn't really done much other than a lot of versions of other people's works for most of the year. So getting into January, I was really excited to actually do some original stuff and threw everything on. I was I got all these backlog of these great plugins and packs I wanted to try out, some of your stuff and some other people I subscribe to their stuff. And I'd throw together the song, and then I'd sit there for 5-10 minutes trying to think of what the heck do I call this song. Making the song was easier than coming up with a title.
Yeah.
So yeah, sometimes the bottlenecks occur in places you didn't expect.
So are there any things you came across to streamline the process to make it go smooth for you? Like redundancies you found yourself doing over and over again, or anything that stands out? I
think using templates was really helpful. I mean, particularly doing so many of those 8-bit albums. At first I was just, every time I was just dragging over a preset onto each track, and then I was like, what am I doing? So I just ended up making a template that's got, I don't even know how many, 30 to 40 tracks on it of what I had discovered were the presets that I liked the most in that pack, and that worked in that pack and worked the best, and then throwing a simple compressor on every single one of them, like a multi-band compressor on every one, a multi-band on the master, and then it was really quick just dragging MIDI files over, and then just adjusting the levels of on the multi-band compressors, and doing that very quickly. And then once individuals are done, do the master track and export it, making sure that there's a little bit at the end if I need it, depending on what the album was I was doing. That was probably the biggest thing that saved me a lot of time in the process.
Yeah, templates can be huge for having, like, whether it's a session or even just a lot of things I've been working on lately is having, like, everything kind of set up to go. And like in Live 10 now, you can name the inputs on your interface. So I've got this Focusrite Claret 8 Pre with another 8 channels. So it's got 8 channels on its own, but then I've got another 8 channels hooked up via the ADAT cable. So it's 16 channels. And
okay.
I've got synths and microphones plugged in, and I can't tell you how many times I've spent just going up to a mic, tapping it, and like trying to see what's lighting up, where am I, what track am I on, and since Live 10 came out and gave you that feature, my goodness, it's been so helpful. And I've been making these charts recently. I just put one out for the keyboard shortcuts for
I saw that. Yeah.
Live 10.1, but that was I did it really just for me so I could have them. Then I was like, well, maybe people want this, but now I'm doing them for like my interface, what my MIDI hub has in it, my USB hubs, and it's been so helpful, and it's actually helped me make things connect a lot better too. I've realized, like, wait, why am I doing it this way? I could just put this wire over here and reroute this. I've got like a little patch bay that I've been using, and it's just man, I can't even tell you how much easier it is to get down here and start.
Totally. Yeah. And that's the biggest, like, demotivator is just like, I gotta set this stuff up now, and
why isn't it working? Which track?
Right. And I remember when I was doing my 8-track stuff, I would have everything was just like, there was just mics on the drums at all times. It was like, it was in my bedroom, mics on my drums and everything plugged in, and all I needed to do was flip on an amp, and I knew the mixer was set and I could just record at any time. It's a little more complicated now. And just before we started up the podcast, I was like, why is my mic not working? I realized it had it in a MIDI channel. I'm trying to get the audio mic to show levels on a MIDI channel, because I just wasn't thinking about it. So it's even the simplest things like that have done now thousands of times you can mess up or not think about, and then you're just the whole time you're like, I know of this. I've been here before. How did I fix it last time? And then of course, and you feel like an idiot.
I've definitely been hunting for some complicated, very technical issue many times, and realized, like, the mic didn't have a wire. It's like something so obvious, that you just overlook the simplicity, and you're looking for like these complex answers.
Yep. Is it plugged in? Is it, when you call tech support?
Yeah, I have a friend that worked for the cable company around here, and he worked tech support. And it was such a sense. Everyone's always pissed off when they call, first of all.
Of course, yeah.
And he says the number one problem is that they don't plug the thing into the wall, like electricity.
No power, electricity. Yeah.
So he used to say, like, is it plugged in? And they'd get even more pissed off. What do you think? I'm an idiot.
Exactly.
So he had a strategy where he would say, is the LED on the front illuminated? Like the standby light, And they'd be like, no, it's not. Oh my God, I didn't plug it in. I'm such an idiot. And it's just so funny how, like, the different question changes like the attitude of the customer. But it's true, like the simplest things are sometimes what you're doing wrong.
Yeah, and that's what tech support is. My background is in my professional background is in food service, and I'll never forget the first time we had somebody, they come up to me and said, "Nate, there's a problem. A customer found a tooth in their food." And I'm like, I just like, my face must have went completely white, and I was like, how do I go and talk to this customer? They found a tooth, and I'm myself, how is this possible? Like, I mean, I'm looking at everyone that made their food. They seem to have all their teeth.
Smile.
Like did a tooth just fall out into their food? And I'm just absolutely panicked, and I get out there, and by the time I got out there, the customer realized it was their own tooth that had fallen out into the food. And this happened several other times in my I've been in, you know, that line of work for, you know, 25 years or so. It's happened several other times since then, and every time I said, I don't want to insult you. This might sound weird, but are you sure it's not your own tooth? And it always has been, thankfully. But you know, it's just those weird little things that sometimes the simplest answer is what the problem is.
Yeah.
Thankfully, because it would have been bad for me.
When you get caught up, I think, in technical things like, you know, like music can get, you know, electronics can get, anything like that can get, even food service, because there's a lot of people involved. It's very easy to miss the simple thing, you know, because you're looking for, you're assuming it's the complicated thing that has gone wrong.
Yeah, Occam's razor is often correct.
Right. So when you're doing your tracks, are you using MIDI files, or are you writing out, are you figuring out all of these parts to all these songs?
I mean, a lot of times I'm using MIDI files, and there's been also a lot of times that what I found a lot, especially with those 8-bit albums, is I'd look for, I did the first one, I did the Megadeth album like real quick, because I was like, oh, I've got all these MIDI files and it's quick and easy, and I just threw it together. And then I started wanting to do other songs, or other full albums, I should say. And I found, like, almost with all of them, like, there'd be almost every song would be, and there'd be one that I just search everywhere for and couldn't find. And I'd have to, like, construct it. Or you drag something in there and be like, I don't know who did this, but it's totally wrong. Yeah. And, you know, especially with the albums that I mean, all of them, I guess I know very well. So, you know, if I'm listening to Abbey Road and there's one note off, I'm gonna say, hey, that's not right. So, and I know with the Pink Floyd album, even though, you know, there's only 5 tracks on them, but you know they're Pink Floyd songs, so they're extremely long. You know, just looking, I found a MIDI file for the song Dogs, and I dragged it into the project, and I looked at it, and it was like 14 minutes. I was like, well, I know right off the bat that that's wrong, because that's like a 17-minute song. And I looked, the BPMs were right, and so I just found there was this huge chunk missing. And I think there were no drums, or like huge amounts of drums missing. So I kind of just like stitched together the 3-minute section that was missing, and then programmed in. I just actually played along with, I've got some V drums right here. I just played along to all those drum intricacies for the last portion of the song, because it's not really a beat so much as a lot of fills. And kind of stitched that one together. That song probably took me longer than any other song. And you know, you really only hear, it was on Instagram for the first minute, which in a Pink Floyd song, they're not even getting warmed up yet. The drums haven't even come in after the first minute. So yeah, but I wanted to do it for the album, do the entire thing, and it took a long time. And there were some other ones where I couldn't find any MIDI, so I'd find the sheet music and then try to use that to piece together the song. But yeah, it was very rarely just quick and easy. Or I'd think I'd be going along and making really good progress, and then I'd hit one song and it would stop me dead, and it would take me hours to figure it out.
Yeah, there's that danger when you're learning songs and finding things on. You know, I look up like songs on guitar a lot on the internet.
Sure.
And sometimes you're like, nah, something's off here.
Yeah, you start playing the chords and singing along, and you're like, no, you get to your second chord and you're already lost. You're like, this isn't working.
Yeah. But it's amazing we have that, because it wasn't like that when I started, kids.
Nope.
Like,
no, you had to pay $35-$40 to get a book of music from a particular artist or whatever, and you'd have to search for it high and low,
or just get out the tape and play a little rewind, and just until you figured it out.
I was always bad at that.
It's definitely was good ear training.
Yeah,
for sure. But yeah, it was tedious, for sure. But it's always exciting when you could do it, though.
Yeah.
And then I guess as you learn more too, you kind of know what to expect a little bit. And
I had gotten this, just thinking of how everything's changed so much. I had gotten this, as we sound like a couple of old fogies now. I got this old VHS instructional video from B.B. King. This was probably like 1993, 94, nice. When I had been playing for a little bit. And I was like, well, I want to play, like, who doesn't want to learn some B.B. King licks? And, it was like $50, $45-$50 for this one VHS tape that was 30 minutes long, with B.B. King just sitting there showing you a few licks. And now you can go on YouTube and find millions of hours of these great people teaching you every song and every lick and imaginable. It's just, I can't even imagine how much better a player I'd be if that had been available to me when I was really developing as a musician.
Well, I think if I'm being honest with myself, because I like to imagine, I would have got so much more out of it. I probably would have been watching like people falling off their skateboards instead for hours and hours, and never picked up my guitar. There's so many more distractions too.
That's true.
Because I used to get bored when I was little. I it's hard to get bored now. There's too many distractions. But
no, you're right. I remember we had emailed back and forth about that. You'd mentioned in one of your episodes about how to draw the Marvel way. And I have an old notebook where I would spend 5-6 hours just trying to draw one of those Todd McFarlane covers, and like I just can't even imagine having that kind of attention span now. Like, I just get, I can't imagine just like, your phone dings or whatever and you lose interest.
Yeah, there's I used to spend forever in my room just drawing, just drawing and drawing whole comics and flip books and listening to music maybe while I was doing it, and just being off in a world.
Yep.
Where like I don't. It's I know I've said this on the podcast before, but this is a good example of kind of like an odd thing in the world today, where you can sit down and talk to someone, and for whatever reason, because it's being recorded, maybe like the phones go away, and it's really nice to have uninterrupted conversation, which is just so hard to come by in the wild.
Yeah, I really, it's one of those things I think about almost every day, and I want to be better at it, but I just like, I don't have the discipline to do it. And I feel like a lot of what I'm doing with the releasing the songs anyway is all just discipline. It's just saying, hey, you got to kick your I'm only accountable to myself. If I miss a day, there are very few people that are going to call me on it or say anything. It's just to myself, wanting to keep going. And I need to get better about having the discipline of just putting the phone away and everything, and using that. But like you said, if you take all the minutes you spend on your phone in a day, are you going to be doing something productive with it, or are you going to be watching a skateboarding video instead? I also, for my kids, I don't want them to necessarily see me just constantly distracted. It's better to have some focused time with them too.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you about that, because you have kids. How old are they?
I have twin sons that are 6, and my daughter's going to be 4 in April.
Okay, so they already have mastered iPads and iPhones, I'm sure, by now.
It's complete. Yeah, they still call them Kindles, because they they had like access to a Kindle first.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, they're my boys especially can do just about anything on it. Now that they can read, like they're in first grade, so they really in the past like 4 or 5 months have gone complete, like they can just sit there and read a book by themselves now, which is amazing. But then they can also, write, so they can type on the thing, they can search for things, and it's starting to get a little scary, the things that they can do. My daughter just pops it open and finds videos of something to watch.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to ask you, like, how do you manage that with their use and their, like, are you trying to cultivate, like, activities like that they might do that are kind of like electronic free, or is that
they know that
there should be, but just curious.
I think they know that the iPads are like a special thing. They know that they can't have them all the time, so then when they have them, they're they're in kind of their special iPad time. I think we're in kind of a easier place right now, but soon, especially now that they can search and type and stuff like that, it's going to have to be even a little bit more structured as far as, you can see the YouTube rabbit holes people can go down on and the things that they can find and be exposed to on YouTube in particular. I mean, not worried about social media yet at that age, but not looking forward to that either.
Yeah, well, that's a huge thing. I mean, I teach high school kids, and
you must see it much.
It's a whole other way of life that they live than we ever did.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody does. I mean, it's still, I mean, it's funny because it's not that new, but it's new enough that I don't think anyone's really figured out a good way of managing it. Everyone just has to kind of go about it themselves.
I can remember my parents being concerned about like video games when I was younger. Playing a lot of video games, and every once in a while I'll be like, you get out of the house. Like, this, what are you doing? Like, your eyes are red, you haven't slept in 3 days.
Yep.
And and the video games today are so much more immersive too.
I know that I got that that Zelda game, like not this Christmas, but the Christmas before that for
Breath
the Switch.
of the Wild, yeah.
And I'm still like only part of the way through it. Like, I mean, it's one of those things too. It's weird as an adult because I still love playing video games, but I just don't have the time to devote. Like, you would, as a kid, you'd spend 8 hours just solid playing a video game. You get up to use the bathroom or get a bite to eat, but I wish I had the time to devote to it, but honestly, there's so many other responsibilities going on that I don't know that I could spend the amount of time necessary to really get in there and play as much as I probably should.
Yeah, it was when I started playing guitar that stuff all kind of fell away. I think luckily, I do get a kick out of like today there are people making like tons of money playing video games online.
I know.
I love to joke to my parents, be like, "See, Ma,
yeah, if you hadn't held
told
me back,
I had to put this away. And I got a real job, and look at me now." These kids
some of these YouTubers that have like a channel where they play games and they're pulling in, $10 million a year.
Yeah, silly money.
I mean, obviously that, it's just like anything else. Only the best of the best are going to get to that level. But there's plenty of people just making a decent living doing it. You know?
It is a funny thing. I mean, even like, the work I do with music is like crazy to imagine like that can be like a side job to do stuff like that. And what our internet has given us is really wild. I mean, we're having this conversation right now. Mm-hmm. But it's one of those like to go back to the Marvel comics, great power comes great responsibility. Like you have to really work at it, and I know I'm very conscious of it. I think, and I still find myself really getting lost. I mean, I got like my RSS feed of just like various music related websites that I feel like I have to check every day, and like I'm gonna miss something. But it's like a thing, and it's You gotta like really watch it, I guess. You know, it's easy to just get caught up in this stuff and never do anything.
Yeah, completely. And and you've touched on before is, you can just get caught up in the collection aspect of it. Like, oh, I need this plugin and that plugin and the latest new pack. And you just go through all that and realize you haven't done anything with any of it. And I've definitely, I think I went through the same pattern you did of just like, like you've talked about, getting unsavory versions of software and having to have everything. And I did the same. I did the same thing, and then I just realized I'm not using any of this stuff. I don't know how to use any of this stuff.
Yeah.
And when my in the middle of January, actually, my computer started having these crazy problems. My processor was giving me these issues, and so I had to basically completely wipe my hard drive clean, install a new processor, and then install everything from scratch. So I installed Ableton, and then and since I was on this tight timeline, I was like, I have to get something out today. I waited until my day off. I was, for a few days, I just put up really hashed together things because there wasn't much I could do with my compressor acting like, with my processor acting like that. It was an odd issue, and it was, if I used different drivers, I could kind of do stuff and edit, but I couldn't record anything live because the latency was like a second or something. It was just crazy latency. It was impossible to do anything. So I, woke up early that day, reinstalled the operating system, reinstalled Ableton, and then realized, how much of the stuff do I really need to reinstall?
Yeah.
I reinstalled a couple things. I've got this Easy Drummer. I don't know if you ever played around with that.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
It is.
For such a cheap program, it's like $150 or whatever. It does so much, and it sounds great. So I installed that. Luckily, with like stuff like what I have from you, there's nothing to install. I just, it's just all in a folder, and I open it up as needed. And then I just found like, wow, I didn't need a quarter of the stuff I had installed. And yeah, just went to it, and I'm like, why don't I can just hold off with what I've got now. I've got Amplitude, which is, I got everything you can possibly need for guitar. Mm-hmm. You got this drum program. I've got a million great packs from you and other people. Like, that's more sounds than I had access to in my wildest dreams 20 years ago.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, I felt myself as a guitarist almost being like, well, there is something nice about having, the real amp. But then I'm like,
yeah,
Amplitude is plenty for the reasonable person,
Oh, completely. Yeah. It's still, of course, it's nice playing with a live amp.
It's true.
But being realistic for my purposes, am I going to bring out an amp? I don't even have an amp anymore. I probably have one somewhere in my parents' basement, but I don't have one in my studio. I just plug direct because I'm going to lug out an amp. I'm going to put up a microphone to it. I'm going to plug it in, and it's probably not even going to sound as good as what I'll get through Amplitude.
Yeah.
With my setup.
Yeah. That's, it's pretty convincing to, you can really get rid of a lot of stuff. I have that feeling you had. I have half of mine to just kind of erase everything on my computer and just build it back up as I need it. My way of going has always been like, ooh, that looks cool. I'll use that one day. I'll throw that in. I'll throw that. I'll save that. I'll keep this. What if I did it as I needed it? Got sounds as I needed them, or I think I would realize I don't need much because much of the stuff I have, I've never touched. Mm-hmm. Even my own stuff. So much of it, I've really I've made it and then used it a little bit as I'm kind of demoing it and trying it out, making sure it works. And then I don't get a chance to use it because there's so much more stuff. I'm making more stuff
well, I think that is probably your art though, is the creation of those packs, and that's your productivity,
It is, and it's fun for me. I enjoy it, and it is really nice for me. Just last night, for instance, I just started playing some music, and I was just gonna use my sounds, and there's so many. It's nice to have that nice palette, but it's I don't think I'd recommend anyone to like do as much as I've done. Like, there's no need for that. There's
No, but it's great, and I mean your stuff is just always. I always look forward to when you release a new pack and just putting it in and checking it out, and there's always cool. It's just interesting to hear those sounds, and I wouldn't in a million years guess where you'd gotten them from originally and how you can create them from that. That's something I'd love to get into too. I just don't know what the heck I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I mean, I've learned about myself, like I really like exploring sounds and music and just that adventure of like, what's this going to sound like is really fun for me. Almost as fun as making a track.
Mm-hmm.
Almost, I'd say. Though making a track has more like rip your hair out moments than
right.
the sounds do. Because for me, I guess with the sounds, I'm open to the surprise, really.
Right.
There's only been a small percentage of times when I'm trying to do a specific thing. Maybe when I think about like the classical guitar one I made, I wanted it to sound fairly realistic. But most of the time, I'm kind of like, let's see where this goes. And you're not really going to get disappointed in that way. But with a track, there's just something different with like a song.
Yeah.
But
I think one of the things I'm thinking about too is in doing this, like kind of pressuring to get the track out every day. And then there's making the track like we talked about. And then there's, every day first thing I do basically when I wake up usually is I grab my phone, I splice together a quick video and thing for the track so I can put it up on Instagram because it's just audio at that point. But now like as I get, I'm past a year that I've been doing this, I'm like, I haven't really accomplished the things that I really had wanted to do musically. I mean, I'm glad that I'm in here and I'm making music and doing stuff, but there's like other like longer term projects I'd want to do. So I'm trying to think of, is there a way I could have that same discipline of getting in there every day and recording? But I mean, obviously if I'm doing a rock album, I'm not going to do a rock album that I'm serious about anyway. I'm not going to complete a song every single day.
Right.
That pace is going to be a little too much. So trying to think of like, could I just, hey, here's me doing the tambourine and upload that. But you're trying to do that same principle of not breaking the chain, but maybe not with complete tracks anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of get what you're feeling, I think. Where I try to, that's kind of my philosophy too, is do something every day. Even if it's small, even if it's little. But at least like there's something, I feel like I can look at the day and be like, all right, I moved like a little bit forward.
Right.
If nothing else. But it's easy to put a lot of different projects on your plate. And in your case, I mean, if you're trying to do a track every day, that's a big enough project to distract you from everything else anyway. But
yeah, if I didn't have a job or kids or family or any responsibilities in life, maybe. But
yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I know what you're saying. Like finding the balance is tricky. I'm not gonna pretend like I've found it. It's like I'm like you. Like there's a lot of things I'm really happy that I'm doing, but there are other things that I still want to do, and I'm also starting to realize it's not just time, and it's not just that I'm too busy with other things too. There's, I think, a little bit of something else going on there too, and some of the other projects are like purposeful, unconscious distractions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I spent like the last couple of days organizing things, so it's real great and easy, but I also avoided doing some other stuff in the process of doing that. So yeah, I think just like secretly, what's the word? Like subverting myself, my with other things, like making myself feel like I'm doing something, but I'm really not.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's real easy to like, I alphabetized my sock drawer. Now I really got a lot accomplished today,
Right. I avoided the hard work though.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think it's when it's really just the discipline of getting in there and doing it every day. And there were so many days where I'm just like, I would rather do anything than go into the studio right now. And I just force myself to, it's giving yourself that, like, that deadline. And, 9 times out of 10, once I just start noodling around a little bit, I get into something and it comes out. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's, hey, that's kind of cool. And I can throw something together. It's very rare that when I force myself to do it, that nothing happens. You can always make something happen. And I've got this album that I've been working on very intermittently with all these songs that are from like a band I played with like 20 years ago. And I was like, what, it'd be cool to put all those songs, get them recorded for once, because they've never been really recorded. And for a while there, I was just getting in the studio every day and I knew all the songs. So it was just a matter of like, well, I got to just do the drum track. I got to do the bass track. I got to do the guitar track. So, and it didn't need inspiration. I was waking up early, like at 4:00, so I could do it before work.
Oh, nice.
I did that for a little while and it got a little tiring, but just getting something done. And after a few days, it's like, wow, I have like a couple complete tracks, like it's not rocket science. It's just getting in there and doing the work, not, waiting for inspiration to hit you.
Yeah. Well, one of the nice things is it is something that, you love to do, even if you don't feel like it. A lot of times once you get there and get started, you find what it is you like about it and something strikes you. And I think that's like an important thing to remember when you're really dragging your feet and you're like, I don't want to do it today, I'm feeling lazy. Is that, once you get past that like decision to do it, you'll probably find a way to enjoy yourself.
When's the last time you really felt like really inspired? Like, oh my God, I gotta get in there and I'm so inspired to make music.
I don't know. Occasionally, I mean, usually it's listening to music that gets me to that, honestly.
Yeah.
Or maybe seeing a good performance or something, but there's times when I hear like a song and I'm like, I want to make that kind of song. I want to do that kind of thing. Oh yeah, that was really cool. I want to do that. My problem might be that that could be any genre at any time.
Right.
But it's as far as like, if you want to know like the percentage of times where I start doing my work when I'm really inspired compared to the percentage of time when I'm just starting and maybe I'll get lucky and find inspiration. Yeah. It's probably like 10, 20%, once in a while, like you're like, yeah, I'm pumped. Let's get down there. Let's do it. Like, that does happen, but a lot of times it's like, okay, let's go down and let's make that feeling happen. And I might not have it yet. So.
Yeah. I feel like when I was younger, that inspiration was there like all the time, like when I was like a teenager or whatever, like playing in bands or like writing songs. But yeah, I think it's just that growing up and realizing that this isn't like, maybe this isn't the top priority in my life right now. It's just like, that's when you have to just say to heck with inspiration and just, force yourself to do something. And it's weird. Like, I know it sounds weird saying like it makes it sound like it's not fun. I do really enjoy it and I have a lot of fun doing all of this stuff and really have a blast. But I don't know. I feel like I look at it differently now than I did when I was a kid.
I think I look at a lot of things like that though. Like, yeah, maybe it's like 10 to 20% where I come down excited to start, but I'd say like probably 90% of the time I get inspired once I get going.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But I'm like that about a lot of things. Like, life is busy and fast and there's a lot going on, and the things that are fun in my life stress me out when they're coming up. And it's like, I gotta go to the baseball game. It's like, that's like yeah. Or whatever it is, this is a fun thing. I'm going to a concert tonight. Man, I'm tired. But once you go, you have a great time.
Right.
But sometimes it's just like getting off your ass and, not letting the busyness and the obligations of everything getting you down is hard. So,
and just not making excuses too. 'Cause it's so easy to just say, "Oh, I would have gone to that show or that I would have gone to that event, but I'm too tired. I'm too busy. I'm too tired."
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know if it's necessarily like any kind of loss of interest in making music, but just the pressure of daily life, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But once I'm there in almost any situation, I usually enjoy it.
I just always feel this kind of like pressure, or this little voice like talking to me, just like you got to be doing something. I think for years it was there, just saying you should be making music. You should be making music. You got what you need to do it. Just do it, and ignoring that voice, and finally just said, you know what, I'm gonna start just doing stuff and putting stuff out there, even if it's whatever. And that's why January, the first one I did in 2017, 2018, really gave me that kick in the butt that I needed to, say, wow. And that voice has been gone ever since, It's kind of there a little bit, being like, you should be working on some of the projects that that would be a little more productive, or something you'd be a little bit more proud of than just, banging out January tracks. But for the most part, I just it feels like a relief, just like, I'm doing something. I'm getting something creative done. I feel more accomplished.
Well, that's, I think, why I have a sort of do something every day policy, because I have that nagging voice, and I have these like running to-do lists. Some of them are real to-do lists. Some of them are just in my head. But there's this like kind of like thing going on that's like, you gotta, come on, what are you doing? Do something, be productive. And the way I can extinguish that is by doing something and being productive. So even if it's a little thing, it does help a lot. But sometimes I'll be productive in the morning, and then like 7 o'clock at night rolls around. I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing, man? Come on, get going.
Yep.
So it's a good thing, I think, in the end, but it's definitely a stressful hobby.
Yeah.
or a stressful passion, or whatever you want to call it. Like, it's a stressful thing, and maybe it's because so much of the motivation is, like you said, on you, from you. Because you're not going to have like your boss saying like, hey, come on. Well, I mean, if you're doing professional work, then that's different. I've had that too. Like, what are you doing, man? Hurry it up. But
time to lean, it's time to clean.
But it's a lot easier to do it when I know someone's going to yell at me if I don't. Someone's going to be upset, or something's not going to get completed, or whatever. Then it's a lot easier to do it. But when I know that the consequence is going to be nothing really, then I can be like, eh. But luckily there's also that voice like kind of being like, come on, man. What are you doing?
It's hard being accountable to yourself.
Yeah.
And only yourself.
It's weird because it can be like ruthlessly cruel, and it can talk you down worse than any boss ever would. Call yourself worthless, and but it's also the easiest person to lie to in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Well, I really would have done something, but
it's okay if I don't do this.
It's okay for today. It's okay. It's just like anything else. It's okay if I don't go to the gym. It's okay if I don't do this.
Yeah. Like I would never do that at the job on a project, but
because you don't want to let people down, and
just like I would never tell anyone like you're worthless, you do nothing, all your stuff sucks.
you don't say that to your students.
But that's all going on in your head to yourself. In my head to myself anyway. So
no, I'm the same way.
Yeah, so it's like a funny dichotomy. Like it's easy to let yourself off the hook, and it's also easy to beat yourself up.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, well, good. I'm glad I'm not the only one.
No, I think everyone's got that. I think everyone's usually their own harshest critic.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just that accountability to yourself I'm I'm treating it like, it's like, if I don't get a thing put on Instagram today, my boss is going to call me and say, what the heck's going on, and you just got to kind of trick yourself in a way into getting it done.
Yeah. A lot of like trickery going on. Well, listen, Nate, it was really cool talking to you, man. Finally, I've been like so impressed by your work and your output, and it's been really fun watching you do what you do, and great to talk to you about it a little bit, and just run over some of these things we talked about today. It was good fun for me. So thank you so much for taking some time.
Absolutely, thanks for having me.
So we want to send people your direction. I know we got chefelf.com.
Yes.
Chef Elf, CHEFELF.com. And your YouTube, is that's also Chef Elf, right? YouTube's.
Yeah. It's also Chef. I don't know what the exact URL is, but yeah,
that's what I see here. So, okay. So like, I know there's a lot of 8-bit music fans out there, and these like versions of some of these albums you've put out are really, really cool, and they're a lot of fun. And again, almost like we were talking about the Beatles here and just like the different mixes. It's fun to hear this different instrumentation over like songs that and you're familiar with, and it's just new perspective, new lens to look at stuff through, and you did a great job. I mean, I always was really impressed with how spot on they sounded, and it's great stuff. So everyone should check that out, chefelf.com.
Yeah, and you can listen to them on YouTube, and then there's a link, I think, on my website to the Google Play Store, and they're all for free for download. I think Thriller is the only one that got kicked off of YouTube for whatever reason. For some reason, there's something verboten in Thriller that they wouldn't allow on YouTube. It's a MIDI 8-bit version of a cover song, I guess.
Yeah, I don't really know the actual legality of all this. So maybe you better go listen soon, everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Well, nothing. I figure I'm not charging for anything, so you can get away with it. But I mean, hey, people do cover albums, right? And they charge for those.
Yeah.
I'm not using any of the original music, so.
Right. Well, cool. Nate, thanks so much. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Check out Nate's work, chefelf.com. You can find my work, AfroDJMac.com. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. And that's it, I guess. Have a great day.
All right.
Take care.